I don't know how many goals he scored for Argyle, but there we go. But good luck to you, and thank you very much for letting us have the space today. And thank you all for coming today. And thank you, Luke, thank you, Charlotte, and thank you, Tudor, for the very good discussions we've had on the way here and at the round table with the firefighters and the police officers this morning. And could I say a big welcome to all of you from Plymouth, but all of you that have come from other parts of the southwest that are here this afternoon. Anybody here from Truro, from Falmouth, from Penzance, from Exeter? Well, just put some hands up, please. Torquay, yes. Anywhere else? South East Cornwall, anywhere else? Yes. Totnes, fine. Thank you very much. Well, thanks a lot for coming, and thank you for the support you're giving to Labour, because gaining the council here in Plymouth will be a very, very important step forward, not just for obviously the people of Plymouth, but it'll be a step forward for the whole message across the southwest, that Labour is a party that does represent every part of the UK. We are campaigning everywhere. In the past few weeks, I've been in Carlisle, I've been in Amber Valley, I've been in Birmingham, I've been in Swindon, I've been in Milton Keynes. I'm here, and tomorrow we're in Derby, and then up in Yorkshire at the weekend. We're campaigning all over the country in these local elections to get a very, very strong message out there of the strength of our party and of the offer that we're making to the people of this country. The southwest is an area of incredible beauty, of incredible industrial history. So much of Britain's industrial heritage actually comes from Devon and Cornwall, and it's an area of appallingly low wages, often very poor quality housing, and a lot of insecure private rented housing across the piece. And the depressive effects of the pay system in the tourist industry damages so many people's chances. And so a plan for the southwest centres around investment, around infrastructure, around social values. So it would be a Labour government with a National Investment Bank dedicated towards each region that would be investing in a complete upgrade of the rail system all the way to the south. It would not stop at Exeter. Likewise the road system, and likewise the development and protection of jobs across the southwest. High-skilled jobs, good quality jobs, and also welcoming and recognising the incredible contribution made by universities in Exeter, in Plymouth, in Falmouth, and all across the piece, in employment, but also in education across the whole region. Because it is that creative sense and that innovative sense that does bring prosperity to all across the region. And that's what Labour will do. So I'm working obviously very closely with Luke. I want there to be far more MPs in Devon and Cornwall for Labour, and therefore the huge rally that we held in the summer at, in Redruth with John Ashworth on campaigning on health shows what Labour is about. We're serious about mobilising people in Cornwall to defend their health service, to defend their social services, but to improve them and improve mental health services all across the entire region. So our party is not just about election campaigning, it is about what we do between elections, and I'm very proud to say that we've now started to appoint community organisers for our party so that we become something that is totally part of the community, campaigning all the time on health, on education, on housing, on jobs, all the things that matter to people's day-to-day lives. That's why we have more than 500,000 members of our party, and that's why it's so exciting to be in the Labour Party and be able to take part in those campaigns. We're challenging very fundamentally what this Tory government is about. 2010 they came into office jointly with the Liberal Democrats. Don't forget the Liberal Democrats. What was their first thing they did? Slashed the welfare budget. What was the next thing they did? Cut tax at the top. What was the next thing they did? Cut spending on local government. Imposed austerity. Austerity on the people of this country. And what has the result of 8 years of austerity been? More people sleeping on our streets. Larger classes in our schools. Longer housing waiting lists, longer NHS waiting lists, lower levels of wages than there were 10 years ago, and in many cases falling wages, frozen wages in the public sector, and a massive loss of jobs amongst council workers, amongst the police service, the fire service, the ambulance service, all the key things that matter in our society. All the time we're on a knife edge about whether we can get through or not. A major disaster like the Grenfell fire happened in London. Firefighters were brought in very rapidly and very bravely from all over London and the South East in order to try and save life at Grenfell. They were unable to save the lives that they tried to. The cladding was there, the cladding burnt, and people died. Surely to goodness, the lesson from that and from the Lacknell House fire is that cladding is dangerous and should be removed. The government itself admits that. Yet every council that's applied for funding, including Plymouth, to have the cladding removed and retrofit sprinklers has had that request turned down by the government. I tell you what, a Labour government would do things very, very differently. We would fund it properly and straight away. But of course, if your whole economic model is about deindustrialisation, is about tax cuts at the top, is about cuts for the rest of us, then that is exactly the kind of society that you end up with. I don't want to pay my taxes to a public service that is then privatised to a company that chooses to register itself in a tax haven in the Caribbean in order not to pay any tax on the profits that it makes. Just think that thing through. We pay taxes to run public services, the profits of which are siphoned off to a tax haven somewhere else. That's why we're very clear, and John McDonnell has made this very clear on behalf of the Labour Party. We will end austerity. We will charge more in corporation tax and tax for the very richest, but we will also invest, and we will also bring those natural public monopolies like mail, rail and water into public ownership so we all benefit from them. And so let nobody say there is no choice in politics. There is a very good choice in politics. Our choice is that we work for the good of the people of this country, that we work to invest in a future for the people of this country, and that as a party we consult very widely on how we develop those policies. I was talking to Tudor earlier. Your 100-point manifesto for Plymouth. I'm not going to ask you to name all 100 of the points, but if you manage 97, that would be very good. Do you know them all? Yeah. He says he does. I'm sure he's telling the truth. But that is a great way of doing things because you're bringing real life experience into making the manifesto. And that's exactly what we're doing as a party in the rest of the policy making we're doing. I want there to be a general election as soon as possible. Yeah. And if Theresa May decides this afternoon to call a general election, I'll be fine, I'll be very happy. The only thing is we're going to do it differently next time. I'm not going to restrict myself to 100 events in the next election campaign. There's going to be far more than that. But we'll put an alternative there. And the fundamentals of our manifesto, you'll understand. We've launched a consultation on our overseas aid policy, which is very interesting, and I hope you'll take part in that discussion. We've also, Angela Rayner and myself, just launched very recently a consultation on the National Education Service. This is going to be the legacy of the next Labour government. A National Education Service on the principle that education is a human right, not a privilege. When Michael Foot fought and won a parliamentary seat from Plymouth, he fought it on the principle of the National Health Service. Labour's whole post-war message was the principle of the National Health Service. Healthcare as a human right, free at the point of need for everyone. It transformed people's lives. And the National Health Service is our proudest possession, and we will defend it to the end. And this year, on this anniversary year, we defend it even more strongly than ever before. And I want to have an education service that does the same. So you think about it, under the Tories, successively, education has been cut and curtailed. There was a time when universities didn't charge fees. There was a time when adult education was virtually free or very cheap. There was a time when colleges didn't charge fees. There was a time when most preschool education was free. Free because we want all children to be able to grow up together. Yesterday we had a very interesting roundtable discussion on knife and gun crime and growing violence in our cities. Yes, you need effective policing in order to protect communities, but you're failing in your duty if you don't look at the causes of alienation, the causes of young people growing up in a society that appears not to recognise them and appears not to value them in any way. And that starts at the very beginning. A child growing up in a comfortable home with a good income coming in, you can pretty well work out what their life chances are going to be from the day that they're born. A child growing up in an overcrowded, damp, insecure, private rented flat that their parents might be thrown out of in 6 months' time to go and look for another damp, overcrowded, private rented flat. Parents with a low income trying to survive, using food banks in order to feed their children. You can pretty well work out that the life chances of that child are not likely to be as good as the other. We all know that. So we deal with those issues. We deal with those issues by a living wage. We deal with those issues by investment in housing. We deal with those issues by ensuring that every child, irrespective of parental income, gets a nursery place to go to from the age of 2 for 30 hours per week. And that we do properly fund our primary and secondary schools so that those children are well taught and well educated in a secure environment. And you know what? They all achieve much better as a result of that. And then when it comes to the older students, the difficult choices they have to make, and I must say I'm sometimes more than concerned about the stress that 14 and 15-year-olds are put under on making exam choices, which can be of life-changing for them, although they probably don't realise it at the time. I want to see a more inclusive approach to education, where there's more education for life, and also I'm utterly determined to ensure that the incoming Labour government does introduce the pupil arts premium to ensure that every child in every school gets the chance to learn musical instruments. But it's also about college and university. I want students to go to college or go to university and reach the best of their potential. That doesn't mean treating a vocational skill as somehow other second rate and second best to an academic qualification. It means recognising being a skilled electrician, a skilled plumber, a skilled engineer is just as valuable in our society as being a skilled doctor or a skilled lawyer. Give the recognition and the esteem to those that work in whatever way they work, that are training to achieve the best in our society. A society needs doctors, needs nurses, needs engineers, needs scientists, needs electricians, needs plumbers, needs carpenters, needs cabinet makers. It needs all these trades. Treat them fairly and treat them properly. But don't penalise young people for wanting to go to college, wanting to go to university, and don't saddle them with 50k of debts because they've worked hard enough to get a degree. And so our policy is that I recognise it was a bit cold, I recognise it's expensive, but it is our policy that we will end fees in colleges and universities and in adult education. And it breaks my heart to think of what is now happening to the Open University. one of the great achievements of the Labour government from 1964 to 70 was Jenny Lee as the Minister of the Arts. Jenny, working class woman, daughter of a miner from Scotland, was determined that there should be art for all. So she established the Arts Council, and she also set up the Open University, so that everyone would have a chance of a university education, even if they'd been denied it before, and there was no entrance qualifications. You could get yourself registered and do a degree there. They've been underfunded, they've been cut, they've lost students, they've lost courses, and so many people have lost opportunities as a result of it. I tell you this, a Labour government would reverse those cuts to the Open University, because we value the Open University and we value the principle of lifelong learning for all of us, whatever it is they want to learn. Human beings are naturally inquisitive, creative, imaginative people. That's what we want to develop in our people and in our population. So the Labour offer, come the general election, is about the economy, is about the health service, is about social justice, is about the kind of education service that we want. So I do invite you all, go online, look at the principles behind the National Education Service. We're consulting on this till June, and we hope to bring a firm proposal to party conference in October as to how the NES would operate. So go online, register, and be part of it. This is modern, creative, inclusive, and something the Daily Mail doesn't understand at all. And it's also about our recognition of the need to live in a sustainable world. I want a world of peace, I want a world of justice, and I want a world of human rights. I want us to play our part in assisting people when they're going through humanitarian crisis, as people have from Plymouth down the years, as they want to do if the frigates and marines were there to help in hurricanes, disaster relief, saving refugees' lives in the Mediterranean. But it's also about a government that would be serious about not selling arms to Saudi Arabia while it's bombing Yemen. And it would also be a government that is very serious about our responsibilities to the environment around the world. We would not accept Donald Trump's idea that he can walk away from the Paris Climate Change Accord. Listen, I say this to Donald Trump, even with all his towers and all his money, climate change, global warming, rising sea levels, loss of ecosystems will affect him too, just like it will affect every single one of us in this room. We really do have to recognise the collective nature of environmental protection and put it into all our policies, as has been done in the Plymouth Labour Manifesto. So Plymouth will play its part in being a city of recycling, of preservation of green spaces, of preservation of the natural world and the natural environment. And well done, Plymouth Labour, on including that in your manifesto. Now, on May the 3rd, elections are taking place all over England. And I'm not making any predictions of anything we're going to win, anything we're going to gain anywhere across the country. What I do know is that in all the campaign visits I've undertaken, I've seen this fantastic enthusiasm to get out there and campaign and get on the doorstep. So we say to the people of Plymouth, if you want a council that is serious about building houses, getting houses built for social rent with lifetime tenancies, if you're serious about a council that will operate like Labour councils should, making sure they're using their powers of purchasing to insist on decent working conditions in the supply chain, including living wage. If you're serious about a council that will look after you and will demand from central government money to protect those living in high-rise blocks, that will stand up for our fire and rescue services and our ambulance services, that will play its part in ensuring the mental health service is properly funded, not left underfunded, and so many people living through a crisis. If you want a council that represents all of the people of Plymouth, and you reject the divisive, nasty policies that UKIP have put forward in the past, that I urge you to vote Labour on May the 3rd and elect a Labour Council in Plymouth. Our party has a proud record of things we've achieved in government. The National Health Service, council housing, the Town and Country Planning Act, the Equalities Act, the Human Rights Act, and so many of the huge elements of social progress that were made. The Equal Pay Act that was introduced in 1970 by Barbara Castle. But we all know we've got a lot further to go on equality and opportunity and justice within our society. Councils on their own can't do it all. But I tell you what, the innovative work done by councils in high quality social care, high quality health services, good quality housing is something that we can all learn from. And so, on May the 3rd, the people of England in most major cities and towns will have a chance to elect Labour councillors. Labour councils working together to try and deal with the housing crisis in this country and show to the whole country that what we need is a government in office with a completely different set of priorities. A Labour government would not continue with austerity which widens the gap between the richest and the poorest. We would be ashamed to have people sleeping on the streets of our cities in the 5th richest country in the world. We'd be ashamed of the level of child poverty that exists. We'd be ashamed of the role that this government plays in so much of that. And so, our party has come a long way. Sadly, we didn't quite win the general election last year. And nobody was more disappointed in that than me. But we had unremitting attacks from mainstream media. We overcame them by two things. One was the use of social media and the huge reach that can have to many people to get a straight message out there. And the second was the incredible enthusiasm of so many people got together in their communities, came out on the streets, knocked on doors, and didn't just ask people for their vote. No, asked them what their issues were, what their problems were, and how we can learn from them. Because political campaigning isn't just a retail transaction of saying, hello, I'm here, you vote for me, I do this for you. It's about us doing things together. We is much more powerful word than I. Let's be we in this campaign and we in this party. And so, I want to thank you all for inviting me. Thank all the people all across the South West that have worked so hard for Labour for so many years. And say that our party represents every part of Britain. Our party is a party of the South West, is one of social justice and equality, is one of absolute determination to deliver for the people of this country. I'm proud to be here today in Plymouth, proud of the work you're doing, and look forward to a great win on May the 3rd. Let's go for it! Let's go to Labour Council! Let's go to Labour Government! Let's be strong as a party! Thank you very much indeed!
Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you for those words. I want to see this man as the next Labour Prime Minister of this country. I want to see this man as the next leader of this council. I want to see this fabulous woman, Charlotte Holloway, as the next Labour MP for Plymouth Moorview. And to do that, I need to see all of you on the doors. I need to see you sharing Plymouth Labour messages, speaking to your friends and family. We have less than a week to register thousands of people to vote. There are people in our city who want to achieve that change, but they can't unless they register to vote. So we have less than a week to do that. Check for your friends and family. Are they registered? And then speak to your friends and families, your neighbours, your colleagues. Ask them to vote. Explain why you believe passionately in Labour. Why you want to see a Labour council here in Plymouth and a Labour government nationally. Explain what matters to you in your life. Because what matters to you in your life will be just as powerful to someone that lives next door to you. Because we have less than a month to kick the Tories out here, to have Labour councillors elected right across our city, in places we think we always win, and in places perhaps we haven't won in the past, but we're going to this time here. And this is our challenge. Now, I know that Jeremy's up for it. Because he keeps going around all around the country and keeps telling us he's up for it. And I believe it. And I see the Shadow Cabinet doing it. And in the last couple of weeks, we've had Tom Watson. We've had Sue Heyman, who I'm very proud to serve with as part of the Shadow DEFRA team and Jeremy's team, looking after our environment, food and fisheries. And we've had others that are planning to come between now and then. Cat Smith, brilliant, giving the messages. The National Labour Party is backing Plymouth Labour. People in this room, are you backing Plymouth Labour? Yeah. Oh, yeah. You're going to do something about it? Let's get on those doors. Let's get on those doors, get people to register to vote and get them using their vote on May the 3rd. And for a third of our votes, using their vote next week, when postal votes arrive. Because we've got a chance to get our vote out then and on May the 3rd. Now, I know we can do it. I know that there's a lot of energy, hope in this room and out there across Plymouth that want to see a better future. I think we can do this. I think we can spread that message of hope. We can avoid the nastiness that we see on social media from some of our opponents locally. Because we can do this being true to our values. And that is the challenge that we've got, not just on May the 3rd, but leading up to the general election whenever it comes, to get Jeremy Corbyn elected as our next Prime Minister. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for